right. Hello, greetings, and welcome everyone to this exclusive interview with yet another Aptera interested individual. This is David Tiemeyer. I said that right?
Yes.
Okay. This is David Tiemeyer. He is a fantastic individual. He's an engineer. He's a aerodynamicist, if I am saying that word correctly or that field correctly. If you would, please kind of give us a rough idea of who you are, what you do, and what you have done in the space of aerodynamics.
Well, Jeff, it's good to be with you today. As a kid, I built model airplanes, as a lot of kids did, and eventually ended up studying aeronautical engineering at college at the university level and got involved with helicopters after graduating. But I'd say where my interest was piqued more was with cycling. And cycling has always been my avocation from a young age. And so, living in areas that were pretty windy, I always was interested in trying to punch through the air just a little bit faster. And so that's that. And, the technical background that I had at the university level in aeronautical engineering, served me well. So, of course, the Aptera uh, piqued my interest first time I saw it. And yeah, that's why I'm joining you today, is to talk about that and some other things that relate to the Aptera.
Fantastic. So, what first interested you in the Aptera? You mentioned that you saw it as an aerodynamic thing and you thought it was really neat. What kind of drew you in? Like, what was the, oh, I gotta have this thing, or oh, I gotta invest in this company, or what was your in for the Aptera?
Well, I could see immediately that the shape was the most efficient way to move through the air at speed. And so recently it was proved out in the coast down testing that Aptera did with their launch edition vehicle and testing and validation. And so it was interesting to view that and kind of dissect the video that they released. And so I shared that with you earlier. I can share the screen if you're interested.
Yes,
Um,
actually, this I mentioned this in one of my news videos that somebody was putting together numbers for the coast down test. This is the individual that put together said numbers. Give me a moment here. I'll give you the ability to share.
so basically, this chart shows the speed as time goes on. And the points here are what was given on the video from the validation test. From this, you can do a regression analysis, and it appears fairly straight in alignment. The physics of the situation would actually make that more of a polynomial, since the drag on the vehicle is a function of the velocity squared. But in this representation, it's linear, which suggests to me that Aptera would make a great aircraft moving at 200 miles an hour. And it does look like an aircraft, of course, but at the speeds it normally travels, 60 and below normally, or 75 and below, there really isn't that much effect from the power required to move it forward from the drag of the air, which is a good thing. It has served its purpose. And so what we were seeing here more is the drag of the tires on pavement. And so one other thing you can gauge from this graph is that speed in feet per second and time in seconds. If you look at the area under that curve, if you integrate this equation, you'll come up with distance as a function of time, which is what this suggests. So they were moving uphill on this particular stretch at like or half a degree, about a percent grade. And so, based on this rough back of the envelope calculation, it proved that they went very close to 2 miles, just coasting down from 60, which is terrific. So it was fun to, try um, verifying what they or truth, bearing truth to what they were showing us.
Right.
Let's
So,
see.
sorry, I had a sidebar question about this information here. Like, if you're saying that it has minimal resistance, similar to an airplane, like what is the normal drag coefficient for an aircraft, or are you familiar with that?
That's similar. You do have and I suppose the drag coefficient could drop out of this, but it really needed to be run in both directions a number of times. There was wind on the day that crosswind on the day that they videotaped it and shared that. Um, but yeah, it's this shape of Aptera is the perfect shape for moving through the air with least, drag.
So, my next question was just, I remember you saying earlier during the pre-interview that you worked for you worked for a bicycle company that got bought out by another one. Could you kind of give me some clarity on what you did there and, your impact, basically?
Yeah, I was hired at GT Bicycles as a project engineer, and I had started building custom bicycle frames before I worked for them, and but they hired me to build some of the custom frames for the U.S. cycling team. So I got to work with some of the fine athletes that came through during the 1990s, leading up to the Atlanta Olympics, and then continued working with the U.S. team for the Sydney Olympics. And by that time, we were looking at barrel aerodynamic shapes, and I could share a screen of one of the. So, for instance, if you look at this tandem bicycle that I built for the Paralympic team, the stoker in the back is blind, but
Hmm.
she has a sighted pilot. And if you look at the details of the frame itself, you can see all there. The tubes are aero, and helps all the cables are buried within the frame and so forth. The wheels are aero. So that's kind of the nature of what I was doing with uh, GT bicycles. And then they were absorbed by Schwinn bicycles before that merger went south. And then I went off on my own as Tiemeyer cycles. So, yeah, that was great.
Hmm. So, what kind of like, I don't know, what kind of unique challenges come from making a bicycle as opposed to any other sort of vehicle? Like, you said you worked for Schwinn for a while. Did they have you make a different kind of like a mountain bike versus a Olympic bike, or what are the differences there?
Sure, yeah. GT bicycles really got started building BMX bikes. That's how they made their reputation, but they wanted to get into some of the other uh, road cycling, mountain biking, of course, and track cycling. So I worked um, fitting all the different characteristics. Sometimes you're more concerned about control, other times you're more concerned about aerodynamics with the triathlon, for instance, where you spend long hours, on the elbow rests. But for mountain bikes, control is more of an issue, so that's a more upright position. Um, Interesting factoid with the Paralympic tandems that I just showed.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes the team didn't do well together, and so oftentimes would build a frame for the blind athlete, the stoker, and she might want to change pilots, which over the seasons that happens quite frequently, and so I had to come up with a way to adapt the frames with stem length, say, or seat position, height, so that when it came to a competition, they would be set up perfectly for them. The frame is flown in, the athletes fly into these competitions, and so they can't mess around with fitting right there when they come in. So that was always a challenge,
Hmm.
but something that coordinate geometry has served me well.
Hmm. Yeah, so I am familiar in a lot of ways with the equipment for the Olympics. It tends to be very granularly adjusted to the people using the equipment. So like it's cool to hear the considerations, some of the considerations that you had to think about when you're changing riders and things like that. Let's see. So sidebar hobbies type situation. You said that you're into 3D printing. Could you show us a couple of things that you have printed and like, like what is that hobby doing for you? Like what do you like about it?
Well, here's a model of the Aptera,
It's
the
familiar.
launch edition, and send the file down to a printer. I don't have the multi-jet fusion printer here, but there are shops that do, and so just send files down. Here's one that I worked on for University of Michigan solar car team and followed them over to Australia in 2023. They're headed there again this year in August with a slightly different design. So it's one of those things that I'll print up a number of these to give to the team members. So it's kind of a fun way to stay connected with my alma mater.
Hmm. All right. So, how is a competition like that done? Like, what is it like to be there? Because I've always wanted to kind of go to like a solar car competition, but I've never had the inclination or the time to actually get down there. So, like, what's that like?
Yeah, and there is a competition in the U.S. too. Typically, they go along the trails, Santa Fe Trail or the Oregon Trail was where they went last year.
Hmm.
So I think it originated in Independence, Missouri, and went as far as Cheyenne, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Excuse me. The one in Australia, drew international universities, and there were some 38 cars uh, that competed. And this started back in 1989, and when GM introduced the Sun Racer. Um, but it's going on 35 years now. And so each year there's the regulations change just a little bit. So, for instance, this year, what's new is that they're doing it in Australia's winter time. So the sun is lower. They I mean, the advantage for the team members is they won't have a lot of smoke from wildfires, probably. Later in the season, it heats up, so it's hot, and wildfires kind of sweep across the Stewart Highway. But during the winter, the sun is lower, so they've given the teams a little more surface area to apply solar cells, and they've reduced the size of the battery, so it requires kind of a different strategy, something that the team will be able to refine from those aspects.
All right. So, let's see. This is another sort of sidebar situation. Have you ever found yourself printing something like 3D printing something and like the print stops and like you just can't figure out why? Like, how do you address that one? Because I have a 3D printer and that thing will give me the blues sometimes. I just got to ask.
I we have a maker group here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I live, and I've played around with those, um, and I had similar problems with with those entry level printers. So I finally, after a lot of frustration, just sent my files to a print shop and had them do it. So, the model that I was showing you here, um, is made with a Hewlett Packard multi-jet fusion printer.
Hmm.
And, it's a $10 print if you have someone else do it. So I think that's the way to go.
Fair
That's the
enough.
way I'm going anyway.
Yeah,
And
no,
they can, for instance, you can see from this print how thin that trailing edge is
hmm
on this particular car, and so they had some warpage of that thin trailing edge, and we ended up having to do some things to stop that. So it became their headache instead of mine.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that's actually my next route at some point in the near future here, because like I said, it gives me the blues sometimes. But so now I'm going to ask a more kind of more abstract type of question, just because I'm curious what your thought process on the matter is. So Aptera has a philosophy that is very efficiency based, and their vehicle is designed from an efficiency standpoint and things like that. How does an efficiency mindset make make a better product, or is that like a trade-off between do you want it to be better or do you want it to be more efficient?
Jeff, there are always compromises in the
Mhm.
design processes. Um, your guest, Jason Hill, talked about. So, for instance, with the coast down test, it became clear to me that the resistance from tire drag was a lot more than I thought it might be.
Hmm.
But, you want to be able to drive in all kinds of weather. And so just to be able to coast out another mile doesn't make sense if you want to be able to drive in wet and icy weather. So, yeah, there are always compromises that you have to contend with in the design process.
Fair enough. So how do you think Aptera's done in managing those compromises?
Oh, I think it's a beautiful product, and It was wonderful to be able to see it in person at Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January. And uh, yeah, just can't wait to have one parked here in the driveway.
Oh,
Um, no,
same.
I think they have done a marvelous job in making the compromise they've had to recently. We were um, the all-wheel drive with in-wheel motors had to be sacrificed just because of supply chain issues, I suppose. But I think what they've come up with is going to work very well. Just watching their process over the last few years, I've been very impressed.
Same. So as an investor, what made you lean in that direction? Because I know that when I became an investor, it was because the idea was so foreign and interesting to me that I was like, okay, if this takes off, there is no limit to where they can go. That was where my head was at when I invested. So like, what was your thought process when you decided to invest?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, I knew that this was the vehicle I really wanted. I just saw huge potential for it in my own mind. And I think that I invested at the level I did to basically pay it forward. I At the time, the price they were shooting for was 35,000. So I invested at that level, Class B stock. Um, Turned out it was 3,333 shares. But it, it just came from a place in my heart where I wanted to see this succeed. I was willing to pay it forward. And, if it comes time, there's an IPO and, maybe I'll get the money back. But to pay for the vehicle at that time, I was just thrilled enough with the prospect of this becoming a viable product that I was willing to put up the money to pay for it right away.
Yeah, there was an aspect of uh, wanting to see the Aptera in my driveway and things like that when I invested, but I think my biggest takeaway from just seeing the Aptera and understanding what it was is that it kind of represents a shift in just general logic around what an automobile should and could be. Do you have like a favorite thing about the Aptera that's just super different that drew you in?
Mm. No, I think it's just the entire package. Having come from my aeronautical background, I always wanted a car that kind of looked like an airplane, except for the wings.
Hmm.
And I guess it was the aerodynamics that drew me in. Yeah, I'm a sucker for aerodynamics.
Yeah, I am a sucker for aero and cool looking things, and Aptera tick both boxes for me. So, let's see.
There you go.
So are there any things that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask about?
Well, with my cycling background, I've always wanted to have a vehicle where I could cycle while driving
Hmm.
and, a velomobile. But in the past, they're always so woefully underpowered. And there are a few out on the road. Certainly, Europe has more velomobiles than we see here in the United States. But I thought Aptera would make a beautiful platform for a cycling position.
Hmm.
And so I came up with something I'm calling the pedestal. So this concept would be a single place steered from the center. And, this is something I would build for myself. there may be other people out there that this will resonate with, but great, you can help me build this thing. But basically, the pedestal, this section here, is bonded to the chase of the tub. And obviously, the console would have to be taken out, and displays and the heater air conditioner unit would have to be moved around. But I just wanted to see whether, it could fit. And I was convinced at CES that, and I'm a large guy, that I could fit in there, though the set, you can see the seat that I kind of recreated would poke out of the top of the vehicle. So another seat would have to be used. But I have had some experience with recumbent positioning. It's not typically what I designed, but for instance, here's a bicycle that I rode in the Santa Fe Century ride some years back, and in a recumbent position. So I've spent, nearly 5,000 miles in a recumbent position. I find it very comfortable, especially coming down Trail Ridge Road from Estes Park in Rocky Mountain National Park. Um, so yeah, here are the sub-assemblies. Let's see if we can increase the size. So basically, it would be hand controlled. This happens to be an airbag, a Tesla airbag that is designed in the yoke here. These would also act as throttles because you have to be able to control speed and brakes. The brake would also be regenerative braking, but you also have disc brakes here. I discovered at CES that the Schaeffler group, who merged with the Tesco earlier, has a steer-by-wire system. So that would fit perfectly into something like this. As a standalone, someone who could only use their hands for control could use the Aptera if this were actuated. I happen to put pedals on here, so it's not like you would be moving the car forward from your own effort. It's ridiculous. It's a heavy car. But the system energetics on the car would help provide some resistance. So I'm working on a recumbent trainer that has a resistance unit that could plug into the electrical system. So
That is
yeah,
pretty
so that's another project that I'm working on while I'm waiting for my car to arrive.
It just now dawns on me the general versatility of a very aerodynamic thing when it comes to just applications outside of its intended purpose. Like an airplane fuselage apparently works very well as a car if you design it to be aerodynamic along the ground, or that same ground aerodynamic shape can be used for a cycling situation. So like you got my wheels turning here about different possibilities for what Aptera could be applied to, or the shape can be applied to. So that was neat. Yeah, so I appreciate you taking the time. I know we've been on for a little longer than I anticipated, but yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to the subscribers to my channel, and hopefully to the world and to Aptera as a person who believes in the vision. Yeah, it was fun talking to you today. I just got to say that. outright. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate your time and taking the effort to get through to the end of this video. I will catch you guys next time.
All right. So long.
You're good. You're queued up here. You got the right angle. I like your plant in the background. I am not much of a gardener, but I do like plants.
My name is pronounced Tiemeyer, by the way.
Ooh, I was gonna say Tiemeyer, so I am so glad you said that. Okay, Tiemeyer, Tiemeyer, T.
I guess you have to release the screen again, don't you?
Yes, I do. One moment. All right, should be good to go. There we go.